It's finally time to start working on our projects. But before we can actually dive in, we have to first plan the project out. And one of the most important things that you're going to do when you're planning your project is meeting with your clients. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you actually have to have a paid client per se. Your client could be yourself. It could be your boss at your day job. It could be a friend or a family member. Whomever is asking you to do whatever this project is, that's your client. And you need to understand exactly what they want and what they need out of this project. And in order to do that, you're going to develop something called a creative brief. Creative briefs are basically an interview process between you and the client to determine all of the different aspects that are going to go into whatever this design project is. Creative briefs need to answer some simple questions, like for instance, who? Who is the client? What do they do? What's their background? Where do they do the work they do? What kind of work do they do? Who is their competition? How is the competition marketing this feature? How is the competition doing whatever it is that we're going to be doing for this client? You also need to know the target audience. Who's going to be viewing this work once it's finished? It also needs to answer the what. What exactly am I building for you? A website? A business card? A brochure? A flyer? What can I do for you? When? How long do I have to complete this project? I also throw in here, with the when, a budget. It doesn't necessarily correspond to time, but deadline and budget are two very, very important things. Where? This is the function of the design. Where is it going to go? This graphic that I'm creating, is it going to be on a billboard? Is it going to be on a business card? Does it need to be reproducible on a website? Where is this going to be seen? How often and from what distance? All of those things are things that I take into consideration when I'm designing something. And why? What's the overall goal for this project? What are you meaning to do with it? Attract new clients, retain existing clients, B2B? What is the purpose of this overall project? How can I help you get there? And what specifically do you want from me in this project? These are all of the questions that can be contained within a creative brief. Now, when you're developing your brief, you need to just be very casual about it. Ask them realistic questions. Don't get real scientific or overly what I call designy when you're developing these questionnaires. Just be very straightforward about it. I open up one of these three applications when I'm developing my creative briefs. Word, Pages, InDesign, whatever my preferred word processing tool of choice might be. Doesn't matter what. Yours could be just regular old text edit. You could handwrite it if you want to. In any form, though, you need to make sure that they have something tangible they can hold in their hands or on a device and that they can interact with. They can write answers, type answers, whatever the case may be, so that they can then send that back to you. You don't want to just be sitting there while the client's trying to think of all this information. You want to be able to give them something to take with them so that they can go home, they can think about it, they can give you all of the information you need within this document. Never try to force the hand of the client when you're developing the brief. Here's a little sample brief. I know you can't read most of what's on the screen, but it's just a really simple one. This is exactly what the creative brief is going to look like that we're going to work with in a minute. As you can see, it's just a series of questions. Who's the client? What's the background? Project overview, goal, target audience, message and tone, visuals, and specifics needed. Those are the questions that I'm getting answered within this brief. And this is something I can print, I can give to the client, they can fill it out, they can make notes, and then they can give it back to me. I can read it, I can make notes, and then I can take that back to them with any additional questions that I might have. This is the process that we call the client interview. And you need to make sure that you're well versed in the art of client interviews because it is definitely an art. There's entire websites devoted to the interaction between designers and clients. And if you go to some of those websites, you'll see that it can oftentimes be a frustrating process for those people who don't really know how to handle it. So my suggestion is to develop a creative brief that works for you, that deals in simple terms, and that is easily communicated to the client. If you need some extra help doing that, we have several classes here at lynda.com on design business principles that will help you along the way. The first of which is actually called Running a Design Business, and we have one specifically geared towards developing creative briefs. This is with Terry Lee Stone, and it's a really great course, and you can actually finish it in just over an hour, so it's a really quick watch. I highly recommend watching this when and if you take the time to start your own design business. It's a very good course. In addition to that, you might also want to check out Vaughn Glitchka's Foundations of Logo Design, wherein Vaughn talks about the entire process of meeting with the client, managing expectations, and some of the psychology that goes into it. Vaughn also gives you a really great free template along with this course to use as your own creative brief. No matter what you use to develop the brief or the interview process, this is one of the most important things you're going to do, because if you don't understand the wants and the needs of the client, they're not going to understand the work that you do, and ultimately, you're going to lose that client in the long run.